How's it going, Star Wars fans? So today's video, we're diving into all of those questions. Before tomorrow's Kenobi episode, we're really diving into just how does Reeva know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader? Now, many of you will be like, oh, I know this already, but believe it or not, I'm seeing left, right, and center people still saying it doesn't make any sense, and I feel like it really does, albeit, of course, there are some blank spaces that we have yet to fill. Also, we're going to get into some really intriguing theories, some of which I think are extremely likely, and as always, I want to bounce these theories off you. Maybe you guys can expand upon it, which is why I think this is a really fun video to watch, because some of this stuff might actually end up happening, or could be close to what is happening. So what is her obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and how does that link back to Reeva's past? I think we may have indeed, as a fandom, found the very reason behind that. Could Qui-Gon Jin be appearing? I don't know, but maybe, and there is a very legit idea that people have come up with as to how he can, and it involves the duel of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, and honestly, a whole bunch of things, and even down to some lines from Return of the Jedi that could link to Obi-Wan Kenobi's interaction with Vader in the series. That is undoubtedly going to happen, and can make more sense out of the linking between this in-between show and that of the original trilogy. So first up, with the first bullet point, is of course one of the most common ones that I wanted to visit. And how does Reeva know that Anakin Skywalker is Lord Vader? Lots of people, I understand how they jump to conclusions. Oh, it makes no sense. If Vader knew that somebody knew he was Anakin, he would completely slaughter them. I agree. In various source material, like comic books, he leaves whole villages dead, even that of his own troopers, if they even see him with the mask off, or make that association with Anakin Skywalker to that of Lord Vader, etc., etc. So there are a few blank spaces, but let's start with the most obvious one, that is the explanation, and that is the very opening scenes of Kenobi, and that is when we see the younglings basically bewildered by Order 66. We have clone troopers executing Order 66, and Jedi are dying, and one of those is very obviously Reeva. Now, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong. I'm not the only one saying this. It's very clear, and this is going to come into our explanations for her disdain for Obi-Wan and the Jedi in general. I mean, of course, Inquisitors can get cracked into hatred in the dark side in other ways, but for Reeva, I think she's honing in on one emotion, and again, we'll visit that in a moment, but this is very clear an explanation, to me at least, as to how she's perhaps been sitting on this Easter egg this whole time in her own mind, just how Anakin Skywalker is Lord Vader. And that could be a billion ways, like whether she was hiding in the Jedi Temple. Don't forget that Lord Vader, Anakin, not in the Darth Vader suit mode, was going around there. Granted, he had a hood up, but that didn't stop that Master Skywalker, there's too many of them, what are we going to do, from identifying him. So it goes to stand that this youngling on screen, probably Reeva, could have also seen that, yes, okay, a clone is referring to him as, wait, you know, Lord Vader, shall we go to this wing of the Jedi Temple or something like that? I don't know. But then, again, I do want to add in, just to play devil's advocate, there are some blank spaces. The Grand Inquisitor did say that you came to us from the gutter, kind of implying that it wasn't from this moment onwards that Reeva, as a youngling, was taken in by Anakin Skywalker. To me, like, you came to us from the gutter, as the Grand Inquisitor said, kind of reminds me of a situation of if Nari, like the Jedi who was hung up in the town and that Obi-Wan saw and who seeked help from Kenobi, it's like she went away in hiding and then went to them maybe voluntarily, like you came to us from the gutter. So yeah, there are some blank spaces, but to people saying it makes no sense as to how Reeva knows that Anakin Skywalker is Lord Vader, I kind of disagree with that. Even with the blank spaces, she was a youngling at the temple, and that is the only explanation we have right now, and kind of need, as to how at least she could have put it together after witnessing him. But we do, of course, need to know the explanation as to how she got away, how she got to become an Inquisitor. Now, there are some more unlikely theories here that I just wanted to chuck in on this before we move on to the next big topic, and that is that some people are suggesting that when Reeva was talking to Obi-Wan at the end of episode 2, you know, when she was like, Obi-Wan, and trying to find him, and he was just playing hide and seek, we can all agree that she was sensing him, right? She could feel him with the Force, her mind, because, I mean, at this point, he had already reconnected to the Force, thus making him a bit more open. She says, I can, you know, your fear betrays you or whatever. So clearly there's that, you know, telepathic kind of Forcey connection going on. She said Lord Vader will be pleased, and then it obviously cuts to, you know, from that moment onwards, Obi-Wan's shocked Pikachu face. Like, Lord Vader will be pleased, and he was like, wait, you know, because in Obi-Wan's mind, yeah, sure, Anakin Skywalker was Lord Vader, but only all of but for a few minutes, because, as we know, Obi-Wan thought Anakin died. Like, that's that. Like, that is literally it, right? Like, from that moment onwards, he knows Anakin was Lord Vader. We don't deny that, but in the actual context of Kenobi's mind, it only lasted a few minutes because he burnt like a freaking marshmallow on a fire. And as a result, understandably, hearing that from Reeva, that Lord Vader will be pleased, he's like, wait, what the hell? Like, but, you know, wait, what? But Anakin, what do you mean Lord Vader will be pleased? Because Anakin Skywalker is Lord Vader, so does that mean he's... All of those emotions are running through his face, right? And so with him thinking Anakin is dead in his head, so why are you saying Lord Vader will be pleased? Reeva then, after feeling him through the Force, I guess you could say, then says, literally in the episode, quote, end quote, like, you didn't know, did you? And because she's feeling him out in that moment through her mind, through the Force. Like, you didn't know, did you? He is alive. And then obviously with Obi-Wan thinking in his mind, like, your thoughts betray you, Obi-Wan kind of thing. You know, he thinks of Anakin and she says, that's right, Anakin Skywalker is alive. So I actually think that's a really cool theory. I don't think that's how Reeva knows, because as I said, I think Reeva's known for a long time and has just been biding her time, waiting to hunt down Obi-Wan. Again, there's another reason why I think she really doesn't like Obi-Wan, and we're about to get onto that point. But as much as I like that theory, because it does make sense with that of, I guess, the logic of in-universe Force stuff. Obi-Wan's recently reconnected back to the Force, making him a bit more of a vulnerable target. With him quite literally learning that Lord Vader would be pleased and knowing that Lord Vader was Anakin, and him thinking Anakin in his head, maybe Reeva, you know, picked that up through the Force beacon. And he's like, you didn't know, did you? You know, that's a pretty creative, you know, fan theory there, and I really dig that. But as cool as I find that theory, there is kind of one thing that I thought of that somewhat undoes this, even though there might be some people who will be like, yeah, but technically this could be Bail Organa, and that is, beforehand, Reeva had already mentioned to the mercenaries that she hired to kidnap Princess Leia, that when the mercenaries asked, like, are you sure he's gonna come? Reeva quite literally replied, he fought beside her father during the war. He'll come. Now again, I guess you could say that Reeva was on about Kenobi fighting beside Organa, but I don't think so. I think she meant Skywalker, as in Anakin. The mercenaries don't know she means that by saying the word, he fought beside her father. Maybe that does mean to the mercenaries Bail Organa. But again, I do understand the hesitation there, because how does she know? Like, quite literally, how does Reeva know that Anakin was with Padme? Just because she saw in the temple a clone refer to Vader as she was looking at Vader slaughtering people, maybe, hey, Lord Vader, you know, what wing of the temple should we go to next? That he had 2 children. That doesn't necessarily mean she'll jump to that conclusion. So I do agree that there is a percentage of a chance that she could have been on about Bail Organa in that moment, and it could still make this theory true that in that moment where Reeva was saying that Lord Vader would be pleased, when Reeva felt him think Anakin with association to that of Darth Vader, there is some logic to suggest that she put it together then through Obi-Wan's thoughts betraying him out of his fear and panic in that moment. And so she was like, yes, you know, yes, Anakin Skywalker's alive, bitch, you know? Lord Vader would be pleased if I catch you. So again, I do find all that very fascinating. So let me know what you think of that. Do you think that Reeva knew since she was a youngling? Because that's very plausible with seeing Anakin at the temple. She was there. She was a Jedi youngling before becoming an Inquisitor, as we see at the beginning scene. Could be a clone trooper. Could be a billion different ways of revealing that Anakin was there as Lord Vader to her knowledge after witnessing him. But do you think that she could have learned it in this moment with Kenobi's thoughts betraying him, due to him knowing that Vader was Anakin, but thinking that he was dead, but since she's referring to him in the present day, he was like, wait, shit, are you saying that Anakin's alive? And she's like, well, yes, you know, do you think that could be it? But then how do you explain the kidnapping of Princess Leia with, he fought beside her father during the war? Could mean Bail Organa, but could mean Anakin. But if it was Anakin, lastly here, how does she know that Anakin was with frickin' Padme Amidala? But even though I do argue that's not really, they weren't really that secretive about it. And to anyone debating like, oh, Kenobi should have known that Vader was alive, or like that through just Vader being in the Empire, like Vader was not a public figure. Like, this one's such an easy explanation. Obi-Wan was on Tatooine for like a decade, as of when the series picks up. Vader doesn't go on galactic TV or news. Whenever he went out, it was extremely low-key, as I said, to the point of sometimes even turning against his own soldiers if there was something that he felt uncomfortable with. He didn't go round in any public way. It's very important to stress that Obi-Wan, yes, he knew that Lord Vader was Anakin, but there was never any galactic news or on the radio like, oh yes, Lord Vader has touched down on Coruscant. Like, nobody knew of Vader other than that of the Emperor and sure, Tarkin, Thrawn, etc. But not your average normie, especially not that of frickin', I don't know, yeah, just galactic normies. Alright, so up next, why, as people were saying, is Reeva so obsessed with Obi-Wan? Sure, you could put this down to a few simple explanations and we could just move on by saying, like, as she says herself, you know, I'll get what I'm owed. You could put it down to her wanting favor from Vader, but I do think it could come down to something else, and that is, I feel like the transparent psychology that she's projecting in her dialogue or like kind of monologue to the people of the town about the Jedi, if you know what I mean. And that is, if we know that she is one of the younglings from the opening scene of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 1, then it does kind of make it seem kind of, I mean, sometimes Darkseid users, they can get kind of illogical when they latch onto their hate, you know, just like, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, you know. So Reeva here, in a similar situation, sees what she sees in the temple and sees Obi-Wan, and we're about to get onto the explanations like, screw you, Obi-Wan! And, you know, through maybe her becoming an Inquisitor, her going to the dark side, it kind of just makes it that much more black and white for her in terms of, like, I'm just gonna latch onto the hate of this. So what is that reason? Well, I for sure think that we're gonna get more flashbacks of when the younglings were running away from, you know, Order 66, seeing Jedi getting slaughtered like you're seeing on screen. So when we get more scenes of this, it could be that she saw the holo recording eventually that Obi-Wan made telling any Jedi that are out there, do not come back here. Do not, if you come back here, you are dead. You are dead. And so, as a result, she probably felt abandoned, and if anything, betrayed by the Jedi. Let's go back to that dialogue that she had on Tatooine when she was threatening the people. The very words she used were, the Jedi are cowards. They failed you. They abandoned you. There's no point in protecting them. They would not do the same for you. That is 150,000% projection, in my opinion. It's just like the Jedi cowards. She views them as cowards for all those who didn't return, like maybe Master Yoda and that of Master Kenobi, of whom she knows literally put out a message saying stay away. That makes sense to me. They abandoned, and she put heavy emphasis on you. She is projecting there. I felt abandoned. There is no point in protecting them. Why would you protect them? If anything, I'm going to hunt them, because they would not do the same for you. They didn't do the same for me. So I feel like the words in that moment will be the full circle story that makes Reeva become the person she did from little youngling at Order 66, like you're seeing on screen, to this person right here, hunting Obi-Wan, you know. So let me know what you think about that. I think that's probably why, A, yes, she wants to please Lord Vader and maybe get some more favor, obviously, right? But also, she might have her own little personal vendetta that she's latched onto through seeing and being in the trauma of that of a massacre. She then, like, doubled down on that fear and hatred. And, you know, fear is a path to the dark side, right? So, like, she developed that through feeling abandoned and using those very words of the Jedi cowards. They failed you, abandoned you. There is no point in protecting them. They would not do the same for you, as they technically did not do for her. All right, so second to last, that of Qui-Gon. Could he appear? And we can link this into the Darth Vader duel, because there's lots of ideas floating out there now. So again, Liam Neeson has commented saying he's a bit of like a movie or whatever TV snob in terms of like, oh, I'm not going to appear on a TV show kind of thing. But, you know, never say never to like appearing in Star Wars in a movie again kind of thing. So, you know, he was trying to downplay it. There was references to Qui-Gon a couple of times already, and you could say that, oh, you know, he's just not appearing as a Force ghost now. But it also could, you know, spell like, oh, but he will appear later. It could be foreshadowing that. So, of course, never say never, especially when an actor is trying to downplay things. You know, Liam Neeson could appear. He might not appear. But some people are saying, and this ties into just how, and this is a big question I have that I can't fully answer just yet. How is Obi-Wan getting away? More or less unscathed, more or less. You know, you look at Ben Kenobi, you know, he's a bit older, but how does he get away from Darth Vader? We know they're going to have the Duel of the Fates again, or the Duel of the Century, rematch of the Century, I think is what Kathleen Kennedy said. And some people are saying, what if Qui-Gon in this moment shouts, like, Anakin to Vader? And that would kind of be enough to bring Anakin out in that moment. He's like, wait, Qui-Gon? To throw him off, and maybe for Ben Kenobi to make his escape. I mean, sure, that's a cool idea, but then others are bringing up, would that not break canon, though? Because if Vader is alerted to that of a Force ghost, then maybe that would contradict the whole line of Ben Kenobi in A New Hope saying, you know, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful then. So do you see what I mean? I mean, I think there's an argument to be made for that, of course, but then Anakin still might be, or should I say Vader, would be so perplexed by it, he wouldn't really think, well, what does this mean? Like, you know, so that could be done. Some people were thinking that Qui-Gon could just appear in general to give some assistance to Obi-Wan in some way during his battle against Vader, somehow helping him get away. It doesn't even have to necessarily be, you know, calling out to Vader, even though there is a part of me that loves that. Like, that would literally make Vader shook. He would be like, wait, what? But then there's some other moments that I both like and feel about this, and that is, what if Kenobi, due to his trauma, due to like literally only just learning that, holy crap, my former brother and guy I thought dead, the guy I'm still having PTSD style trauma nightmares about, is alive. How did he survive that? Again, I could go on about that forever. The revelation and panic attack that Kenobi had. Like, what if he tries to bring Vader back to the light, even if in the most subtle way? Like, when he gets brought before him, maybe as teased in the first or official trailer. I know that sounds like a crazy plan to some people, but, like, what if, like, Obi-Wan being so defeated just tries to talk to him? Like, this is one opportunity. So I thought you were dead. Let me just at least try to talk to you, even though you've probably become more of a hatred of a monster thing that hates me more than ever now. What if he does try and reach out to him? Because there is a line that kind of backs this up. Now, I don't use this as proper evidence because some people do, you know, there are like lines already in the original trilogy that seem to contradict this show happening. I do go both ways with that. A presence I haven't felt since could mean not necessarily Mustafar duel, but the duel they have in this show. But then with Leia and, you know, Dayu, just her saying about, you served my father in the Clone Wars, help me Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Hey, what about, remember that time on Dayu? So that one's a bit more loose. Some people like to defend that by saying she knew him as Ben. But then there comes this line. So in Return of the Jedi, as Vader told Luke, when Luke was optimistic about, you know, Father, please, you know, you can, you know, come back to the light. He says, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. That's implying that Obi-Wan literally once thought as you do in terms of bringing me back from the darkness. Because think about it, he didn't do that on Mustafar. Like, he basically was just like, had a bit of an exchange with him with the Padme moment. Only Sith deals and absolutes. They fought. He did proclaim, you are my brother, Anakin, but there was no Obi-Wan once thought as you do. He never tried to bring me back as Luke was conversing with Vader in the last, well, in Return of the Jedi. So I think that's a really cool line that they could factor in a connection here with. I don't know what he will say, but maybe there is mild merit to what if he tries to appeal to Anakin. But obviously with Obi-Wan trying that, maybe Vader just goes insane, gets really angry, and that likely leads to the line of how Obi-Wan, as Ben said to Luke, he's more machine than man now. That really does make this full circle, because Kenobi series tries to somewhat, you know, speak to, like, this is his chance after his panic attack of learning about freaking Anakin and Vader being, well, he already knew they were the same name, obviously, but they're alive? What? Makes sense that maybe he would say something. I'm not saying he's gonna try and, hey, come back to the light, but some kind of appeal to the Anakin side that is, you know, to Vader, dead, and constantly trying to be suppressed, by the way. So it would bring some sheen of Anakin out, even in the scenes we're going to see in the episodes ahead. And then that kind of goes wrong. And then in episode 6, you know, as we already spoke about, Luke tries a similar thing, and it's like, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. Which then, just go back a little bit, when Ben says to Luke, he's more machine than man now. Because he'd already tried to do that in this show. Which would kind of poetically also mean that Kenobi, in this Kenobi series, would have concluded that Anakin was indeed dead, even though he's still alive as Vader, but was indeed dead after whatever duel they're gonna have in this show. He tried, but he really is lost. Like, he is. I mean, technically he's alive in a little metal suit, but still, he's more machine than man now. He's concluded after whatever conversation they have in the episodes ahead. There is absolutely no saving him. Leads to the line of Vader saying, you know, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. Luke was eventually successful, as we know. But yeah, I would love to know what you think of that, because that theory and those line connections could lead some insight into what could be happening. But the bigger question is that I'm still so bloody fascinated about is, regardless, Obi-Wan gets away. Like, he literally does, we know that much, and, you know, doesn't give him serious harm. And some people are even saying that maybe Obi-Wan is going to defeat Darth Vader, and I don't know, like, he might do, because they're referring, to use a bit more line referring here, again, this is, you can take this strongly or loosely, because, You can with some lines, but then there's other lines, as we've already been over, that seem to not be as strong as the other lines that work with this show. So maybe Obi-Wan can defeat Vader because Vader says, I was but the learner, now I am the master. Which would mean their last interaction, which would be in this show, not Mustafar. So, but really though, I just don't know that. A rusty Kenobi, literally, he is rusty with his skills. Lightsaber he hasn't used. You know, he suppressed his power for 10 years, nor using his lightsaber for combat. Defeats a rage-fueled, 10 years in, Darth Vader, of whom has only honed his skills, haunted and hunted Jedi. Loses to rusty Kenobi? That's why some people, I guess, are implementing the idea of what if Qui-Gon just pops up as, hey, I'm distracting you, Anakin. You know, I don't know. That is something I'm so fascinated about. This one isn't so much of an explanation topic. This is one that I just wanted to discuss. How do you think he's gonna get away? Do you think that means defeating him? Do you think that is through Anakin coming out a little bit? Because Hayden has talked about the conflict in this period of time that Vader is in that of himself, sorry. So, again, no matter how much Vader tries to get rid of Anakin, which is kind of, other than finding Kenobi, one of his top goals, to completely just kill the Anakin with himself, he never quite is able to, as we clearly know. So maybe that is how Obi-Wan gets away, and that makes him so much more angrier by the time of episode 4 when he finally does strike him down. But that is all I wanted to discuss today. I know it's been a bit more of a longer Star Wars ramble video, but I wanted to have a big ramble about all these theories. Any big Star Wars fans, I would really appreciate this. If you like the video, it really does help me out. I would love to make more Star Wars content, and likes do help promote channels and videos like this out there in the algorithm to get other people involved and offer their theories and fandom down in the comments below. Share it with your friends. Do subscribe if you happen to be brand new here. I'm going to be covering Star Wars well beyond Kenobi, Andor, and things like that, of course. But yeah, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and may the Force be with you always.